Alright, so I'm not even going to record some fancy intro or anything because we got a lot of stuff to cover today, but I've made it back to Oregon. I'm finally vlogging again. I've got all these lovely car parts waiting for me to just put back together, and it's kind of a mess. But today's video is actually going to start 2 weeks ago, so we're going to go ahead and do a flashback to get you guys caught up. What's going on, guys? Today we're gonna be attempting the timing belt and the water pump on the 944 engine. So a couple episodes ago you guys may have heard me talk about this, and I was kind of concerned to pull any of these front components off the engine because I didn't know how to get it to top dead center. But as it turns out, I'm kind of a smooth brain and it's actually pretty easy. But I was concerned because I didn't have the bell housing on the back of the engine, and of course this engine is on an engine stand, so I couldn't put the bell housing on it. But then I realized that you can get it to top dead center with some timing marks on the front of the engine. So I'm still learning. A lot of you guys DM'd me about that, and thankfully you were nice about it. The 944 community is definitely more forgiving than the Mustang community, which is kind of surprising. But I learned a lot, and I also had a friend of mine named Blake. He came through and he helped me get it to top dead center. So it's actually at top dead center right now, but I'm gonna show you guys the process of how I did it and everything. But he came through and he helped me get it to that and showed me where the timing marks were. So big shout out to Blake. You guys should follow him on Instagram. I'll leave it on the screen. He has a pretty cool car, and he's just a really cool guy. So with that out of the way, we're gonna jump into this. So going over top dead center, the main thing that I was concerned about was that the top dead center mark on the flywheel back here, you can't tell if it's in the right spot exactly unless you have the bell housing on here, because you look through a little hole on the bell housing basically, and it just shows you a little arrow that's pointed right at the mark that says OT. I was pretty concerned because I thought that that might be the only way to get it to top dead center, but what I realized is that there's actually another way. So looking at the front of the engine, there's a few different ways that you can tell if the engine is at top dead center. The first of which is this mark on the cam sprocket. So looking at this mark, there's a little, you might be able to see it, yeah, a little notch right there in this little housing piece right here. So this mark has to line up with that. So as you can see, mine is almost there. I need to do some fine tuning. That one is the first mark. Moving on, this balance shaft has a mark with white paint, and that's actually from the factory. That wasn't put on there. So this little white paint mark has to line up with that little notch right there on this little piece of plastic. And then moving down here, there's another little indicator, which is this guy, and that should line up with a notch on the inside of this balance shaft pulley. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a little notch on the pulley on the inside of it, and that's also how you know that you have your pulley on the right way. Make sure you don't put it on backwards. You got to put that notch on the inside. With all of those being lined up, the only concern is that if I were to take these off, then the crankshaft might rotate. As far as I know, I don't think there's a timing mark on the crankshaft pulley. There might be, but what I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna leave a mark. So that way, if the crankshaft rotates at all, I'll be able to tell because the mark won't be lined up. So that is how I got this engine to top dead center. Of course, it's pretty easy. I just used a 24 millimeter socket like this on the crankshaft, and I turned it clockwise until I got it to top dead center, and I just screwed it up, so I'm gonna do it again. One thing I wanted to note is that just because every timing mark is in the right spot doesn't necessarily mean that it's at top dead center. I think it should be, but just to make sure, you can always go and look at the flywheel and make sure that it's in the general location, because the flywheel doesn't have to be right in the perfect spot as long as you know that it's close and all of these marks are in the right place. Although I'm pretty sure if all the marks are in the right place, then it should be at top dead center, but I guess technically it could be at the top of the intake stroke, although the cam sprocket shouldn't line up where it is until it's at top dead center. So I'm pretty sure you can just use these marks, but just as a safety precaution, you should probably just check the flywheel just to make sure that everything is where it should be. So I'm gonna try to get this as close as I can. A little bit tricky to fine tune. I think that's it right there. And then this little notch down here on the lower pulley is lined up. Our white paint is lined up. And now I'm just gonna check the back of the flywheel, and yep, I can see the OT mark right on the top of the flywheel. So our engine is at top dead center. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark everything just to make sure that I don't screw this up somehow, because I am a little bit of a smooth brain, and then we'll replace these belts. Okay, got everything marked. So now we're just gonna release the tension on the belts and pull them off. I don't know why this makes me so nervous. I think maybe just because this is an interference engine and everything has to be precise, and it's also old, and I just don't want to screw things up. But I hate doing timing stuff. For some reason, it just freaks me out. Oh, well, got the tension off the belt. I thought I was gonna have to move the tensioner, but it just straight up loosened. Okay, not bad. Not too bad. One of the things that I'm just so blessed to have is this tool. So this is a specialty tool from Porsche, and the previous owner, I think he bought this actually when he was gonna do this job himself. And it just has these little prongs on the end of it, and then they go into the balance shaft holes like this, and then there's a hole on the back of the tool, so that way you can keep the balance shaft from spinning while you loosen the bolt that holds the pulley on, because they're super tight. So tight that I can't even remove them. Wow, and now the whole engine is rotating. Run into a slight situation, and unfortunately I think I'm gonna have to cut this thing. So hear me out. To get the crankshaft pulley off of here, I need a special tool to lock the crankshaft in place, and that can only be used when you have the bell housing with the pressure plate and the starter. Like, it's just a mess. Like, it's kind of hard to explain, but basically that special tool that I need wouldn't work in this instance because I don't have the pressure plate attached to the flywheel inside the bell housing. Unfortunately, since that's not gonna work for me, I'm not gonna be able to pull the crankshaft pulley off of here. That being said, I still need to get the water pump off. Fortunately, I believe I can just cut this little like black housing thing. There's only a couple spots that needs to be cut. One at the little junction point right up here, and then another cut right over here. It's just 2 small cuts, and then I'll be able to take this black cover piece off in 2 different pieces. I know that that's not perfectly ideal because there will be a slight gap in between them when I put it back together, so it wouldn't be protecting the timing belt perfectly, but it's kind of the only thing that I can do in my situation, which kind of sucks. And then when I put this thing back together, I can also bridge the gap a little bit just to make sure that there isn't like dust getting in there. And then I can also put a little bit of like RTV sealant underneath this little black spot right here, and that would make sure that this doesn't like flap around or anything. Although it's pretty sturdy. Like if I bolted this back in place and it was cut in these 2 spots, I think it would be okay. Kind of unfortunate, but I don't really have any other choice. So there might be people flaming me in the comments or whatever, but I mean, you see what I'm working with here? This is a single car garage, okay? Give me a break. That's one way to do it. So now that I've gotten this off of here, I can actually pull the water pump off, which is nice. I should be able to. This bolt right here is still a little bit sus. I might have to do a little more cutting, but other than that, I think I can get this off of here now.
The next day.
Yesterday, I got the water pump off the engine, and then I just didn't continue because I had nothing else I could do. But today, I got the new water pump gasket in the mail. It actually came in this giant box, but this is all just paper. I think they just put it in there to keep it from bending or anything, but this is actually what has the new water pump gasket in it. So I've got a new gasket, and then I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the new water pump, get that installed. And then I'm not sure if we're gonna put the timing chain and everything back on, or timing chain. It's a belt. It's not a timing chain. I'm used to working on cars that have timing chains. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put it on yet because I'm thinking I'm actually gonna go ahead and pull the cam housing off and possibly paint it. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm still thinking about that, but we're just gonna go ahead, get the water pump on, and then we'll see about putting everything back together in this episode. We've got the new gasket here. Of course, there's only one way this can go on, so I'm just gonna go ahead and set this right over the area. Wait, I almost made a mistake. I need to go ahead and just scrape that surface to make sure there's no contaminants or anything. 1 second. Okay, there wasn't too much stuff left on there, fortunately, but I just went ahead and got any little grime or little thingies off of there. So now this will just sit right on here somehow. And then I will grab the new water pump, which I'll show you guys here in a second, and put it on there. One of my favorite parts about this entire building process has just been getting all the new parts in the mail because, man, they look so awesome. So here we have our new water pump, nice and shiny. I also have a new thermostat as well as the C-clip and everything that will hold it in place, but we gotta start with this guy, of course, so we're just gonna go ahead and try to wiggle this onto here and hopefully not screw it up. Alright, so the water pump was successfully installed. I know that the torque spec on these is like 8 to 10 Newton meters, which is about 5 or 6 foot-pounds. But I don't have a torque wrench that can go that low, so what I do is I just get it to where it's like there's tension on the bolt, and then I just turn it like between a quarter and a half turn more. There's also not like a sequence that you have to do, so just get them snug but not tight. I definitely wouldn't like put a bunch of force on it. Just, you know, if you're doing this at home, use your best judgment, just not very tight. Hopefully that holds up. I'd rather have them be a little too tight than too loose, but with that out of the way, we're gonna move on and we're gonna go ahead and pull the cam tower off of here. Y'all aren't gonna believe this. So I'm in the middle of working on the engine, of course, and my freaking tripod decides to break itself. So I figured I'm just gonna deal with what's been handed to me, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to figure out how to fix this, I guess. I think there's like a little screw that goes through this little latch that holds the camera onto it, but oh, that's so annoying. I'm so close. I just gotta replace the gasket on this. This tripod just kind of sucks. Basically, this little screw right here, just every time you undo this little latch to take the camera off, the screw turns a little bit. You can kind of see it wiggle, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but I mean, it is what it is. Alright, so shortly after that, as I was trying to take the cam tower off of the engine, I actually broke one of my tools. I have this reducer on the end of my 3/8 ratchet, and it's like twisting around, so I wonder if I can get it to focus. Please? Yeah, so as you can see, as I was turning it, the metal was actually just twisting, it wasn't turning the bolt. So I've just decided that instead of taking this off and replacing the gasket and everything, I'm gonna just hold on to the new gasket that I got as a replacement, because if this does start leaking at some point in the future, I'll have that gasket to replace it, but this wasn't one of the problems that I needed to fix. Of course, it is preventative maintenance since I've already got it taken all apart, but I've just decided that I'm just gonna try to put it back together as is and try to replace as few things as possible for the time being. In the next episode, we'll go over putting the wiring harness and the intake manifold and a lot of components back on, and then I'm actually gonna wait to put the timing belts back on, because I mentioned his name earlier in the video, but I'm gonna have my friend Blake come and help me out with that, just because he knows all the tricks to get the tension just right. And it's not that I couldn't get the belts back on, but I've just never done it before, and he's done it, and so I'm gonna have him come and help me out with that, just to make sure. I would hate to put this thing back in the car and just have it blow up immediately or have it slip a timing belt or something like that. So he's gonna be back next week to help with that. So in the meantime, we're just gonna get everything back onto the engine other than the timing belts, and then we're actually gonna move the engine up over to this side of the garage over by the washing machine and the dryer to make space for the next mod that we're doing on the Mustang. So there's a lot of stuff coming in the next week or so, but in the next episode, you guys will see most of the engine reassembly for the 944. We're actually pretty close. I have all the gaskets and everything here. I kind of just have to do a big video about putting it all back together. So I hope you guys are enjoying the Porsche content. We've almost got the engine ready to go back in the car. There's just a few things left that we got to do. And if you guys have been enjoying these Porsche videos, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel when you guys do that. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so that way you guys know when these videos come out. And of course, if you're here for the Mustang, there's Mustang content coming soon, I promise. Just, I got to get caught up because I've been gone in Hawaii for a week. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out and dream big.